I'm your speaker tonight. John Tesh, I'm an alcoholic. Good to be here tonight, good to be sober, anywhere. So we came down from Greensboro tonight. I was here a couple of years ago, and Jimmy spoke at this group, and I drove him down. So he's paying me back tonight. He rode down with me, and Billy Ray came down. So we had a lot of fun coming down here. We ate a Mexican buffet, so I hope I can stay up here all night. So probably a bad decision, but we'll find out later. But I am from Greensboro. I was born and raised in Greensboro. I've got my home group is there. It's the 16th Street Speaker Meeting. We meet every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, and it's a great meeting. It's in a room about a third this size. It's kind of long and skinny, and there's 150 people jammed in there. And there's just some incredible energy. You know, it's a speaker meeting, and Tom I's been up. You know, we get speakers from all over, and a large treatment center comes up every Wednesday night. Several of them do. So, you know, I'm reminded of my face when I walked in AA for the first time. And those sad, long faces, you know. And it's one of those things that I don't ever want to forget. I have a sponsor. My sponsor has a sponsor, and I sponsor guys, and that's just a blessing. My sobriety date is June 28th of 2005. Just celebrated my 8th anniversary last month, and that's just one of those miracles. You know, it's just a miracle that I'm standing here. It's just so crazy looking back at my life. And usually when I don't talk a lot, I don't speak a lot. It's kind of funny. I get a call back in February to come to this meeting and talk. And I said, and this is July? She said, yeah. I don't know who you think I am, but I'm not booked up like most speakers are. So I'll put it in my phone and it will not be a problem. But I guess you guys line your ducks up early, you know, so that's okay. That's a good thing. But I was born and raised in Greensboro, and, you know, my parents were not alcoholics. And it wasn't until I went to treatment and got into this fellowship that I found out that alcoholism runs rampant in my family on my mother's side. And it's kind of funny how all those skeletons stay in those closets, you know, just didn't know about any of that stuff. My grandfather, whom I didn't know on my mom's side, was a raging, a violent alcoholic, and he died early. And then her two brothers, both of them died. One committed suicide, and another one died of cirrhosis of the liver, all because of alcohol. And I guess it skipped her, and then it landed on me. And, you know, I guess my first couple of weeks in AA and listening to speaker meetings, I really didn't want to be here, but when I heard people talking about their experience, strength, and hope, about not fitting in and not feeling a part of, and, you know, it's like, wow, I could relate to that. I think I'm in the right place here, you know. But no matter what, you know, how old I was or where I was, I either wanted to be, if I was talking to you, I wanted to be over here talking to these guys. Or if I was over there, I wanted to be somewhere else. I was never happy with being where I was. Never. I was always uncomfortable. You know, what are people saying over there? What are they doing? What's going on, you know, at Joe's house, Fred's house, whatever. I was never happy just being with me. And growing up as a kid, you know, like I say, my parents, they very seldom drank, maybe at the beach. My dad and a couple of his friends were war buddies, and we went to Nag's Head every year since I was a kid. And all three of our families would rent this huge old Coast Guard station down at Kitty Hawk. And all they did, the adults went upstairs on the second level and played poker for 6 days. And we never saw them until like Friday. And then they came down and we went fishing and hanging out and stuff like this, but they were gone for like 4 or 5 days straight. That's the only time I ever saw my parents drink. I got two younger brothers. I was the oldest, and I don't remember my first ice cream cone, but I remember my first drink. What does that tell you? I was 13 years old, and I don't know how I got out of the house. But my neighborhood, really, there weren't a lot of kids. And my younger brothers and I, we ended up like we were all best buddies. We were hanging around. We were working on go-karts and bicycles and all this stuff. My dad had a lot of tools, and then we were very mechanically inclined. We were always tearing something up, and then fixing it and rebuilding it. Always had extra parts. Never could figure that out. But I snuck out with this guy named Mike Gant, and I was 13, and we went to this party, and it was there was this bottle of Orange Driver. I don't know if anybody's ever had that stuff, but it tasted like Kool-Aid. But it was electric Kool-Aid, and I drank that whole bottle of that stuff. And, the pilot light was lit then, because for about 15, 20, 30 minutes, I had that feeling that I was okay and I was in control. I became a comedian. I was funny. Everybody was laughing at the crazy stuff I was doing. And then up it all came. And, oh my God, it was nasty. Anyway, and my next remembrance is Mike. I'm hanging on to his doorknob, and he's driving me around my block at where my parents are, and trying to sober me up. And finally, about 12 o'clock, he just drops me off and opened the side door, and a door I walked through 1,000 times, and I walked right into the refrigerator, just bam. And my parents were still up, because I was supposed to be home at 10, and it was like 12. And the first thing out of their mouth was, "Have you been drinking?" "Oh, no, I haven't been drinking." And I remember going back to my room, and I saw this British Sterling cologne. And it's like, mouthwash. Don't ever do that either, and because that came up. That was a Saturday night. The next day, Sunday, I was in church, and I was grounded for life. And that's pretty much the truth, So, but here again, I really wasn't exposed to alcohol. Nobody in my neighborhood. That just weren't many kids around. And but I always knew that I was going to experience that as soon as I could and as many times as I could when I was out of my parents' house. So, growing up in high school, I just made average grades. Really didn't play sports. Kind of vertically challenged, but I'm built for cornering and not speed. So, but I started school when I was 5 years old too. I think my mom had a problem with me. I was hyperactive and a little crazy, and so they put me in school when I was 5, and I was always a year behind the rest of the kids. And I think that really affected me too, my alcoholic thinking, that whole less than thing. But I got through high school, made average grades. I had a lot of friends, went to Grimsley. We had a huge graduating class. It was a class of 71. It was like 800 students. But that, going from a small elementary school, going from a little small private school to a small elementary school to a small junior high, and then this huge high school, it was like a miniature college campus. It had 7 different buildings, and you walked to class, and it was pretty cool. But that was back in the days of the boarding castle and all the muscle cars. All my friends had muscle cars and 428 Mustangs and Hemi Challengers. These were high school kids, and I remember the guys that had these cars. I rode the bus every day, and I was so embarrassed that I remember getting off at the elementary school up on top of the parking lot where everybody parked, and I just walked down so nobody'd see me getting off the bus. That's how self-conscious I was back in those days. And but college came. It was time for me to graduate high school, and I went to college. And I told my parents, I am never coming back here, by golly. I'm going to hit the college life here, and I'm going to set the world on fire. And I set the world on fire, all right. Went to a little junior college down in Elizabeth City, near Nags Head, near Kitty Hawk. We had some friends that lived down there, and I stayed with them and went to college for a year down there and worked at Nags Head in the summertime. And the very first weekend I was at college, there were parties everywhere, and met a lot of people, and started drinking immediately, and ended up hanging out with all the wrong people. Every time I found the wrong people. How does that happen to us? How does that happen? But I sought these people out, and of course, the rest of the story. I lasted a year, and I was asked not to come back because I had just terrible grades. I never went to class. That's the thing about going to college. You study and you take tests, and and all that kind of stuff. I didn't do any of that. I just kind of hung out and drank. That's when the drinking age was 18. And you could drive home on 2 wheels sideways, and the cops would just let you go, And but lasted a year there. Ended up coming back and living home with my parents, and for a couple of years until I figure out what I wanted to do, And I'm 59 years old, and I still don't know what I want to do. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but anyway, I've had so many professions. I worked as a sold carpet, installed carpet. Worked at a gas station for years in high school. And then when I was about 24 years old, I bought a 35 millimeter camera. And everybody kept telling me, you need to go to school. You have this eye. So I went to GTCC at night, and we had this fantastic photography, this great group of people. It was like 30 of us. We took darkroom and studio, and it was a whole year at night. And we hung out late and did darkroom stuff. And I think you have life-changing events, or in your life, and one of them was this field trip I went on to this guy's studio, Ralph Holland, in Greensboro, and he had this incredible work on the wall, and all these cool cars in there, and it's just like, wow, I want to do that. I'm going to do this one day, and I ended up becoming his part-time assistant, and then went to work full-time with another guy named Rick Smith from Chicago, who moved down. And I was instantly thrown into the national spotlight doing photography with these guys as their assistant. We traveled all over and did some work for a lot of big companies. And 3 years later, I started my own business. And 5 years later, Calvin Klein was coming to my studio 3 times a year. I was doing the Volvo calendar for 12 years and photographed food and models and fashion and Lee, Wrangler. I mean, you name it. It was like stealing money every day. And it was, they have this saying that if you love what you do, you never go to work, and that was me. I mean, I loved going to work. I'd work 12 hours a day, and I traveled a lot. But with that lifestyle, too, also comes, it seemed like, back in the late 80s, early 90s, I had this full stock bar, and advertising people love to drink scotch and vodka. 10 o'clock in the morning. I mean, that's just what they did, And I had this line drawn in concrete, not in sand, that I was not going to, if I'm working, I'm not doing that. And I didn't for a long time, but I eventually did, and my work suffered for it. Alcohol worked for me for a really long time, and there's a lot of people in the rooms that I've met that I would have really liked to have drank with, It's like, wow, what would that have been like? Like, Jimmy, oh my, can you imagine? We'd be hanging from the chandeliers, And it's funny now, but, I don't know. I don't know the day it happened, but, one day I realized I was drinking in the morning just to kind of get right. And, all this stuff affected, and I'm married, and now I've got two sons, and I'm traveling a lot, and I'm working 10, 12 hours a day. And another one of those life-changing events, I guess, happened to me in 1995. I woke up one Saturday morning, I had this terrible pain in my chest, and all of a sudden I realized I'm having a heart attack, I think. Go to the hospital, and sure enough, I got a blockage, and they did these stents and caths and all that, and I was smoking like a freight train and drinking and doing some other outside issues. And so one day I'm working wide open, the next day I'm in the hospital, and I have a couple more of those surgeries, and then 3 months later I'm having open heart surgery. This was in June of 1995. I'm 41 years old. And I'm like, what the heck's going on here? I'd never been depressed in a millisecond in my life, but a month later, after coming through that surgery, this depression hit me like a freight train. And I tried to cure it with drinking more alcohol, and which is a depressant. I mean, go figure. And I really didn't tell anybody. And I suffered with this for years and years and years. And with the internet coming in, stock photography and digital and all, I just saw my whole industry going off a cliff, in the early 2000s. So I ended up selling my business. And I had really written my retirement letter, I guess it was probably a couple of years before I actually put a stamp on it and mailed it. And at this time, I had everything I wanted. I mean, I had a place at Oak Island. I had a nice home with my kids. At this time, my wife and I had another daughter. She was like our little accident baby, but it was just a true blessing. Looking at her name is Allie, and she's now 16 years old. And I'm saving her a seat right there, I'm telling you. But, the day I retired, I went to the beach, and I'm not one to sit back and just retire. I always figured I'd hook up with somebody I dealt with in advertising or in whatever, and we'd start another venture and do stuff. Well, that really didn't happen. I just disappeared to the beach and just dug in even more, So now, instead of drinking a little bit in the morning and then, afternoon and night, now I'm drinking around the clock, because I can. And I'm going to kind of fast forward a little bit here, but like to I guess 2004, and I'm staying at the beach, and I'm still in Greensboro, and my wife, and I think some of the most magical times for me of the year were Christmas, and Thanksgiving with the family, and I just remember hanging Christmas lights with my dad, and it's just kind of just a magical time for me. And we didn't get a lot of stuff, we might get one or two presents, but they were really special, and I just cherish those times. But with my kids and my depression and my drinking and my knowing that I should stop. And my wife and I had several conversations about, you need to cut back on your drinking there. It's like, well, I only have a couple of beers. Well, I had this whole little scheme figured out. I had at least three cases of beer in the garage at any one time, stashed away. And we had this big old Sub-Zero refrigerator, and I always had like 18 beers in there all lined up. And then as I drank, I'd go to the garage and I'd replenish it. And it's like, well, I only had a couple there, but I forgot about this huge recycling container. And when the thing dumped it, it sounded like Alcoa aluminum waste can, And she says, you're not drinking 2 beers a night. What is this? This is, 200 beer cans in here. So she said, you just need to stop. I said, oh, okay, I can do this myself. I'm a strong-willed guy. So the thing that really scared me was I tried stopping for a couple of days. And it's like, first day, it's a piece of cake, man. Second day, it's like, I can do this. I can do this. Third day, it's like, there's no way in hell I can do this. And so I think I lasted 3 days. And, and that really scared me. It was like I've crossed that line, danced over it, and I'm like 900 miles past it. How did I get here? And how do I stop this? How do I... It's crazy. I had everything I want. I had everything a man could want. And I was the most miserable person on the planet. How does that happen? Money didn't buy it. Things didn't buy it. It was all in here. They talk about that God-sized hole in you, and that's what I had. I had a God-sized hole, because that whole thing when I got drunk and I was going to church, and I was forced to go to church when I was a kid. And the God that I was introduced to back in those days was, a punishing God, and you do this, this, and this, you're going to hell. Well, I'm going to hell 5,000 times, so I'm going wide open and on fire, So when I got here, it was a little different story. But anyway, when my wife suggested I try quitting, and I said okay, and then I, of course, failed at it. Several months later, she said, I think you need to go see a counselor. So I went to this counselor, and I told this person the truth for the first time about my drinking and everything else I was doing. And she just kind of rolled her eyes, and she says, John, there's this thing called AA. I'm going, you mean AA? She said, yeah. I'm going, no. Those are for people that live under bridges and stuff, you know. I said, I can do this myself, you know. And she said, well, there's this, why don't you read this 12-step book? It's called Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's they call it the big book. I said, it's not so big. I've seen bigger books than that. And so anyway, I took the book home, and I think I saw her about 2 or 3 more times. And she said, how's the reading going? Oh, it's going fine. Have you been to any meetings? No, not yet. You know, well, here's the meeting schedule list. Why don't you go find this? This is a great meeting. Go see Jim here. Go see Fred here, blah, blah, blah. I never did any of that, you know. I was just scared to death what I would find there. And of course, I read a couple pages in the book and said, oh, this is silly. This is written it just makes no sense. So 6 months later, you know, Peg is, we're actually going to marriage counseling then, you know, and she gives me a call one day. She says, you know, I want you to go home. There's a letter on the table, and I want you to be very careful. I said, okay. So I went home, and it was literally a Dear John letter. You know, look, we're tired of your anger and your drinking and your rage. You know, your rage and your unhappiness and we're just tired of it all. You know, so we want you out of the house. And of course, I talked to her, and like the good alcoholic wife, you know, she said, okay, I'll give you another chance, you know. And so she gave me another chance, and I stopped drinking for a couple of weeks. And we continued seeing this counselor, and Christmas came around again, and I just fell into another one of those holes. You know, I just had this God-sized hole in me. I was unhappy. Nothing made me happy. Family, friends, nothing. Nothing but alcohol made me happy. It was about June 25th of 2005. It was another Friday. And my wife calls me. She says, we're going to meet at Carla's office in 20 minutes. It was 20 of 2 on a Friday afternoon. And I was like, uh-oh. That was our counselor. So I walk in there. She said, I've been going to Al-Anon, and you've got a serious problem. And the kids and I are gone for a week, and when we get back, we don't want you here. And she got and walked out. And I knew she wasn't kidding. That was the push I needed, I guess, you know. So I went home, and Allie was 7 years old at the time, and I remember walking in a room, and there were little teddy bears and all this stuff, you know, and I just remember saying out loud, my life will never be the same again. My life will never be the same again. And, after drinking all these years, you wake up hungover, and then you drink to get straight, and then you drink just to stay straight, and then you drink just to drink, just to oblivion. And I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired. You've heard that before, and that was me. I was done. And first thought came in my head is like, I can't do this. I don't have the strength to do this. And so I was going to my garage, I was going to my car, and I was going to lay the seat down. I was going to kill myself. And then those words came. It's like, God, you got to help me. I don't know. I told you about my uncle who killed himself. That thought, I had this vision. I was 10 years old. And there was a vacuum cleaner hose coming out of his exhaust pipe going into his window. And I just remember my cousins were just devastated. There were 7 of them. And I just remember the shame and the guilt they had all their life about their dad. And I hadn't thought about that for, 50 years, you know. And that picture came back in my head. And I just went, I can't do that to my kids. And so I remember just grabbing a bunch of clothes and jumped in my car and took off driving. And I'm just driving down the highway. And every song that comes on the radio is a love song or our song. It's like, God, you're killing me here, you know? This is some kind of sick joke or something. And I'm just crying. I'm just, So I end up driving. And I pull over and wake up the next morning, and I'm in Birmingham, near Birmingham, Alabama. Couldn't tell you how I got there. Hadn't had a drink. So a couple buddies had heard what happened, and they called me, and they said, come down to the beach. And so I went down to Long Beach, which is now what they call Oak Island. And I went down there for a couple of days, and I knew what I had to do. And, my last beer was on the Long Beach Pier about 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. I remember standing there just going, this is just not working for me anymore. This is poison. And I remember pouring that beer out. And I remember those words that counselor told me. There's this place called Fellowship Hall. There's this treatment center in Greensboro, right? I'm like, really? I've been here all my life, never heard of it. So I pack up my stuff and I'm headed back to Greensboro Monday morning. And I called Deb and I said, where is this place? And she said, usually they're booked up, it's usually a 2 or 3 week wait. I said, you call them and tell them I'm coming and I'm parking in front of their building and I'm not leaving because I'm ready. I'm done. And so she called me about 30 minutes outside of Greensboro and said, go see this guy named Randy Carter. And he says, they got a bed for you. So I walked in there and I was like a kid going to kindergarten the first day. I was scared to death. But that whole group of people in that treatment center, not only the counselors, but the guests, it's like they're like family, I guess. It's just amazing. Everybody's in it. We all felt the same way at one time walking in there. And it was amazing, this whole 28-day transition, walking in there and seeing these people with genuine smiles on their faces. Like, how do I get that? I hadn't done it in a long time. And so I went through their 28-day program, and that's when I met Jimmy. They had this Sunday morning meeting at 10 o'clock. They bring these outside people in, and the guests write these, beginner topics on the board. I mean, simple stuff. How do I get a sponsor? How do I not go to a bar? And it was an hour meeting. They would answer all these questions and hang out, and we talk to people. And they take us to meetings 4 times a week. We have drivers, and I had this driver. His name was Tom H, and he was just this wild and crazy guy, man. And I had known him from the Elks from years past, and and he had that genuine little gut laughter and that smile, and it's just like, I want to feel that way again. And I asked him to be my sponsor. And he said, sure, man, no problem. He says, when do you get out? He said, I'll get out in about 7 days. He said, yeah, not a problem. He said, call me as soon as you get out. Here's my number. So, one of the things that I found out, after 6 days, you can make phone calls. And so my first phone call was to my wife and saying, hey, I'm in treatment and things are going great. I'm all good. I'm going to be better. And, she said, well, you're still not coming home. I've been going to Al-Anon for a year and you're not coming back in the house. And I was really upset. So I hung up the phone. Nurses knew I was upset, and I talked to one of them, and she said, well, what did she say? I said, well, she said she's been going to Al-Anon for a year. And she went, oh, that is not good for you. And man, she was right. But Al-Anon saved my life. I'm telling you. She gave me that push I needed that I would have never done myself. I remember my mom came that first Sunday visitation, and she said, so I had no idea all this was going on. I said, Mom, you can ask me anything, and I'm going to tell you the truth. And there was this tremendous weight lifted off my shoulders that day. I didn't have to lie anymore or hide anymore. And cat was out of the bag. And, since then, it's just been an amazing journey. My first day there in the hall, they said, well, you're going to work the 12 steps and all this stuff. And I swear to you, I thought it was some exercise program. Well, I can do that. Do this 12-step thing and up and down and to the pool, and yeah, it's no problem. And so I sat down and I saw those 12 steps on the wall, and I saw God. And I went, oh no, I am out of here, man. I'm not having any part of this. And this is some cult religion thing. And my counselor explained to me that it was, power greater than myself, whatever it is. And so we agreed to disagree, and I agreed that I would keep an open mind. And I did. And one of the things I was told, was to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. And I said, really? A meeting a day? He said, well, how often did you drink? Well, every day. Well, an hour out of your day? It's just insurance. So I get out, and I met my sponsor, and he was rehabbing a house, and I knew I needed a place to stay because, my pride, my ego, I'm living at home with my mother now. Remember when I was 17, I'm never coming back here. So I'm living at home with my mom. It was very humbling, but it was really a great time for me to kind of do a lot of reflection. And he was rehabbing this house, and it's like, this would be a great house. What are you going to do? He says, well, I'm going to rent it. I'll be done in about 6 weeks. It's like, well, hey, can I get dibs on this? He said, sure, no problem. So we went off on our journey, doing a meeting a day. And he suggested this meeting called the Early Bird, and it's 7 days a week at the Summit Fellowship Club at 8 o'clock in the morning. And he said, I want you to go to this meeting every day. There's a bunch of alcoholics there. They start their day off with this meeting. There's a bunch of newcomers and a bunch of old-timers, and hang out with the winners. And take the cotton out of your ears and stick it in your mouth because you got nothing to say. And I was scared to death, y'all. First 3 or 4 months, I had a hard time saying my name. And I took this thing very seriously. This was life and death stuff for me. I clung on to every word. I grew up in that meeting. I went to that meeting every day for probably 5 years. I could count on one hand the days I missed there. And those people became my family. There's probably 90 meetings in Greensboro a week, and there's a tremendous variety. And so I try to change it up as much as I can to keep things fresh. But so I went to the Early Bird meeting, and that's when I found my higher power. Was the group in the beginning. They were very important to me. Seeing those fresh faces, and they kept telling me, get in the middle of this thing. Don't hang out on the edges, because you'll fall off. And get in the middle, do service work. Drive the vans, drive the drunks to a meeting. Go out, go to the hospitals, go to the jails, sponsor guys. About 6 weeks later, one of my realtor friends said, hey, I found this really pretty cool house I think you'd like. It's in Starmount. It's 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and it's in this great neighborhood. And I know you want to rent a place for right now. It's like, yeah, let me go take a look at it. And so I took a look at it. And I just fell in love with it and said, yeah, I'll take it. Well, my next thing is like, I got to tell Tom that I'm not going to take his house now. How's he going to feel about that? I'm kind of reneging on his deal. So I called Tom and I said, I found this great little house. I think it'll be better for Allie. It's in a little better neighborhood and close to parks and stuff like that. He said, sure, no problem, but I'm going to be 3 or 4 weeks later. I can rent it, no problem. Rent this other house. And he said, where is it? And I said, well, it's on Audubon Drive. What's the address? 525. He goes, oh, Scott P. owns that house. He says, guess who lives right behind you? I don't know. He said, I do. That's a God shot, y'all. That was kind of cool. So we were able to hang out, and I was able to hang on to his coat tails and apron, for my first year. It was tough for me. They say don't make any major changes your first year. Well, everything changed for me. I got formal separated. We sold our house. We split our furniture up. But I kept going to meetings, and I kept working on that higher power thing. And I got into this routine. I was told to do this every day. Get up, get on your knees. Just say this simple prayer. Thanks for keeping me sober today, God, and help me stay sober. And then do your morning meditation. Read out of the big book a couple of pages, and I was afraid to change. I had this whole little thing, I was afraid to change any of that. And I do that today. I still do that today. And at night, thank God for for the day, and for keeping me sober and putting people in my life. And I faced a lot of struggles. I've had a lot of wonderful times in my life sober, and I faced a lot of health issues again. Back in, it's amazing how God put people in your life. I met this guy, did this fifth step out of Fellowship Hall with this kid, and ended up becoming his sponsor. And a year later, he calls me on a Sunday, and it's August of 2010, and it's smoking hot, and I'm washing my car, and my phone rings, and I see it's Steven, so I stopped and answered it. And so I just kind of sat down for a few minutes, and I realized in about 30 seconds, it's like, Steven, I got to go. I'm having a heart attack. And here I go again, off to the emergency room, and I was having a major heart attack, and went in and did a 3-hour angioplasty and stents and all this stuff again. And my regular cardiologist wasn't there. It was a new guy. And usually if you're in a cath lab, it lasts about 10 or 15 minutes. So I was in there a couple hours, and he was having a really hard time. There was some pretty big problems. And, I was just laying there, and I just said this prayer. It's like, God, it's okay. I'm okay. And for the first time in my life, I had this feeling come over me that I was going to be okay. It was just like, I'm going to be okay. It was amazing. It's just warmth washed over me. And then I passed out, and I thought I had died. I really thought I had died. And I heard this voice, and it said, John, cough. Cough, John. I'm going, why is God asking me to cough? And it was like, cough, damn it, cough. I'm going, well, God wouldn't say damn it, would he? And it was a cardiologist, and my heart had gone in this funky rhythm, and I finally said, who, me? He went, yeah, you, cough. And I did, and my heart was shocked back in this rhythm, and I woke back up again. And it was like, why would God say cough? I'll never forget that. But there was that one phone call from that guy that I had met, at the hall doing this fifth step, and, this whole little thing saved my life. I'm at the men's meeting 3 months later, and sitting beside my sponsor, and it's about 8:20. It's like, we got to go to the hospital right now. Right now? Right now. I feel this pressure again, and I went through that 8 more times. Every 3 months, I was back in the emergency room, back in the hospital, stents, all this stuff, and the last time was, they said, we're going to have to keep you here for 7 days, and we're going to have to do open heart again. And we really don't want to do that, but we have to. And there were all these people, gifts and, cards and letters and Facebook and prayers, And I got to tell you, I wasn't afraid at all, because I knew I was going to be okay. The fellowship embraced me, And I did. I came out okay. Had this open heart deal done again, and I was walking that day, and I walked to my room the next day, and I was home in 3 days. And I was back to meetings in like 6 days. They brought meetings up to my room every day. People did. And y'all got me through that one. I didn't drink over it, I really could have, but I didn't. And all this other surgery crap. And I had I had all this fear. They say here's faith and here's fear, and the two can't go together. So I had this fear eating me up for probably 4, 5, 6 months. And I was just back in this dark place again. I wasn't drinking. I was working the program, but I had total lack of faith. And Jimmy and this guy Steve came by my house and picked me up on a Saturday, and I was just kind of in a funk. And we had a really bad storm that day, high winds and lightning and all this stuff. And Jimmy goes, "What's up on your roof?" I'm going, "I don't know. What is it?" It was a red balloon, y'all. It was just a little red balloon. And so we went to a meeting. The next morning, my wife, my new wife, calls me and he says, "John, you got to come see this." It was my phone just died. Rats. Anyway, you got to see what's on this balloon, and it had fear written on it. It was on top of my car. So someone somewhere had done this, had got their sponsor or somebody and had let go of their fear, and it landed on my car. My little God shot. I don't know, 3 or 4 days later, I'm driving down the road and I'm in High Point and I'm lost and I'm all crazy again, And I'm at this stoplight in this industrial area and I'm just crazy. And I look over and there are these, 3.5 foot tall letters. It said pray. It's from a sign. I don't know. Had fallen down the ground. I'm like, okay, I get it. Got it. And they're in my phone. And my phone just died. But, it's just one of those little miracles in my life that I can now recognize. Years ago, what's some stupid balloon? What's some stupid letters? It's just a little message. It's just the little miracles that I see in my life. The sponsees that I have. And I've seen some guys die, y'all. I've been to some funerals, too. I went to a funeral a year or so ago. One of my sponsees, same age as I am. And I'm in this huge church, and he was a basketball coach. And my wife and I were there, and it's like, nobody knew how he died. He fell down a set of steps drunk, broke his neck, died. And I went, nobody knows. He just couldn't get this thing. God, but for the grace of God, it could have been me, too. I've had the privilege of going to the international convention in San Antonio in 2010, and that was just wild. 60,000 alcoholics saying the Lord's Prayer. Whew, man, make the hair on your arm stand up, y'all. But I guess my message today is that it's just gratitude for me being here. I never wanted to be. You think I wanted to grow up and be an alcoholic? That was one of my little checklists. That be an alcoholic. Yeah, it'd be great. Last thing I wanted to do. Never wanted to go to an AA meeting. One of the things I found out is this is one of the best fellowships that I've ever been around. I think everybody's been in the same similar situations that I've been in. We've all walked through the same doors and fought the same demons. And with the help of a higher power, we've gotten through it. And my time is drawing near here. But I appreciate you guys having me here, and hope to see you soon. Thanks.